Hi there guys, and welcome back to the channel, where today you're joining me in a Jeep. Now I don't have a huge wealth of knowledge on the Jeeps. I have sold them previously in the past at places where I've worked before, but this is the first one I've had into my showroom, and it is a 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. And as far as I understand, the Overland is their top specification. The way that I've been comparing this car, which rightly or wrongly, is with a Range Rover Sport, the L320, and I'll get into the reasons as to why. But starting with just this car, I've been driving it for a few miles now on the country roads near where I am. It's quite a good fun car to drive, really. It all feels relatively solid, and everything's where you'd expect it to be. It's all quite intuitive to use. There's nothing that's dramatically surprising about it, but just a relatively decent SUV. This particular one has the 3-litre V6 CRD engine, and that is producing 238 brake horsepower. That's paired with a 5-speed automatic. Now bearing in mind this is a 2012 car, the 5-speed automatic were few and far between, really. A lot of people have moved on to a 6-speed, if not even an 8-speed at that time, so it does feel a little bit older just with the 5-speed, but it's still very usable. You still get the power that you need to when you want it. It's a little bit clumsy when you're starting to ask it too much of it, in terms of like if you're coming to a bottom of a hill where you're slowing down but then you're anticipating to speed up. It's always got that little bit of lag there, but at the same time, when you're traveling at a high speed, that 5th gear, it is a little bit higher on the revs. So do bear that in mind. It's not the quietest car when you're sat at 70 miles an hour, dual carriageway, motorway, things like that. But all in all, feels quite comfortable. These are nice, big, comfortable seats on this one here. They've got the black leather, Napa leather with the white piping. It looks quite smart. And again, you know, it's a Jeep, so it feels a little bit American within. You've got this big chunky steering wheel, and you've got all these buttons and everything within the system in front. Even the dual climate control down here is in Fahrenheit, and I can't seem to change it to Celsius. There may be a way of doing it, but I can't really find a way of changing that back to Celsius. The degrees within the centre dash here is all in Celsius, because of course it's a UK car, but obviously Jeep is an American brand, so yeah, that, I don't know, I'll have to have a bit more of a dig around on that one there. But anyway, as far as it goes, it's a big SUV with a wealth of options. I got offered this to me by a trader friend of mine, of which then obviously you go through the usual things of service histories and things like that, and then he wants a specification. And as he was listing the specification, there's another car that come to mind, really. So he's saying to me, right, it's got an electric heated steering wheel, multifunction with adaptive cruise control. You've got electric memory seats at the front with heated and ventilated functions, heated rear seats, rear camera with front and rear sensors, this opening electric panoramic sunroof with the sun blind. And as I'm listening to the spec being read to me, I'm thinking, Christ, is this just Jeep's take on a Range Rover L320, which of course the L320 was running at the same time that this was released. And when you put the two side by side, there's quite a few comparatives that you can kind of put to it. Although, as standard, the Jeep actually has more of a specification. For example, the heated steering wheel is standard on an Overland. You can get a heated steering wheel on the L320, but it's something that would have had to have been ticked from new. Same with the ventilated seat option. The heated front and rear seats is standard on an L320, but this has got ventilated front seats as well, which again you can get, but it would have been an option that you'd have to tick from new. So it's almost like they put everything that you could get on an L320 as standard within this Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. I quite like it, to be honest. It all feels very intuitive, and as I say, it's a good fun car to drive, really. The heated seat and the heated steering wheel is definitely needed today on the windy, brisk day that it is, and it all feels quite solid. I like sitting that slightly bit higher, and I like the fact that I've got the memory settings and bits in these seats nowadays. It's all quite nice to have. It's got a lovely leather dash across the top. It's quite a nice place to be. I get a huge amount of light coming in from that panoramic roof. So it is, you know, it's something different. It's something I've not seen before. So I thought, well, let's get a video of it and let's get to know the car a little bit more as well. Now that is a good delivery of power, you can't really take that away, but I just think for the direct competitor in 2012, the gearbox just isn't quite there. Again, it's not unlivable. It's not like I'm thinking, oh my god, I don't want to drive this car, because I do. It's a good fun car, but it just feels a bit more agricultural. It feels a bit more industrialist than the refined other 2012 market competitors that you would have. So, you know, just bear that in mind. It's still a good fun car to drive, but it's just not quite tip top. In terms of the running cost on a Jeep, the MPG is not brilliant. But at the same time, when you're buying this type of car, when you're buying a car that weighs just over 2 tonne and you're getting it with the capability of towing just over 3 tonne, is that what you're buying it for? You're not buying it for the economy side of things. It is a factor, of course, but for example, when I've been driving around on these country roads like I always do, I've been averaging 26 miles to the gallon. So it's not great. There are certainly worse cars out there, but it's still not great. And I think if they'd have just updated the gearbox to go with the times, it might be a little bit better to have that 6-speed gearbox. We're coming up a hill now, and it has to do like almost like a lunge when it changes gear, because it is quite big spacing between the two. It's not enough to put you off. It's still a very comfortable drive. And I've also got air suspension on this particular one as well, much like the Range Rovers do. So you've got your normal road height, you've got an off-road height, and you've got an access height. Very, very similar kind of tactics to what Land Rover do. And it all works as it should. In terms of the reliability, a lot of people have something to say about a Land Rover. And as mentioned, I'm a massive fan. I don't necessarily agree with all of it. I'm not going to say they're bomb-proof, and I'm sure these aren't either, but they are said to be pretty good. The engines are said to be pretty bulletproof, and the gearbox is, as much as I moan about the kind of functions of it, it is said to be a reliable kind of box. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something different to a Land Rover. It's still of good quality. It might not be quite as refined, I have to say. I do think the Range Rover and the Land Rover side of things do have a better finish to their just the silly things like the buttons and the steering wheel finish and things like that, but it's certainly not to be dismissed, it's fair to say, especially when you're looking at the used car market. So an equivalent L320, and I know I keep going back to the L320, but it's only because I know the car really well, is going to be probably £2,000 or £3,000 more than what this one here is, and you still don't get quite the amount of extras that this one comes with as standard. So the HSE definitely has a good specification, there's no getting away from that, but this definitely has more than what that offers. So it comes down to a personal preference, of course it does. And when buying these cars, as I always say, it's really important about the maintenance. This one does have a full service history. It's got 84,000 miles on the clock. It's got a clean MOT history as well. And that's not to say that if it has an advisory, you shouldn't buy it, because they are just that. They are advisories and you can look at them yourselves. But it is very important to get the maintenance right, to find a dealership that you know and trust. There aren't going to be quite so many Jeep specialists out there, but you will certainly be able to find a garage that will be happy to work on them. And yeah, I think they're just an enjoyable thing to have, really. If you didn't want to go down the Land Rover road and you still wanted something that was still a slightly different car to what your Audi Q5 is or your BMW X5 or anything like that, it's quite a cool thing, really. I think it looks good. You know, it's got these big 20-inch alloy wheels on there. It still sits quite high up. You've got these side steps that run down the side. It all feels quite chunky. I feel almost American, it's fair to say. But just a nice place to be. So that's my review on this Jeep, the Grand Cherokee Overland, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you can like and subscribe to the channel, it's much appreciated. And also check out some previous videos I've had. I've had various different SUVs. I've had the BMW X5, and I've also just done a Q7. And I've also had my Range Rover, which is a higher mileage L494. So do be sure to check those out. And I'll see you for the next one. Thank you.